Test 1, 2.
What time do we have? I mean, not what time, but what?
You are. You are. You can't see nothing right now.
Okay, looks like we are all, nope, we're missing the attorney. We can go ahead, okay. Then we will go ahead and get started with, meeting follow-up. Did you have anything for meeting follow-up, Mr. City Manager?
I do not, Your Honor. Thank you.
Does anybody around the dais have anything for meeting follow-up? We will move on then to the Pathways National Heritage Area Designation. Do you have anything, Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, other than to say we have representatives here with us tonight to walk us through this project. Council probably noted in the materials that were provided that indeed there's a number of opportunities for the public to provide input with regard to the feasibility study that's currently underway. And pursuant to that, apparently the draft is due in its completed state in September. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I would defer to those who are here with us tonight to walk us through the detail.
Very good.
Hi, my name is Vernon Lovejoy, and the first thing I want you to know is we're not after your money. The second thing I'd like for you to know is that we think this project is going to be very beneficial for the economy of both Carbon and Macomb County. So to start this out, I guess if you want to throw rocks at somebody, probably me. I was the one that initially came up with the idea of there's got to be something that counties can do besides, in addition to, I should say, in addition to agriculture, in addition to minerals. I moved to Rollins in 1976. My wife was from Rollins. She graduated from the University of Wyoming. Her parents lived in Rollins. Mother-in-law still lives there. So how did I get involved in this? I began to look at alternatives for economic development back in the early 80s. And I kept track of things, and what became quite apparent after going through 2 boom and bust cycles myself and Rollins, there has to be something different that we can use to supplement the income of the people. And it became quite apparent that what was missing was no collective effort underway at that time to do something with the heritage assets. So I collected a lot of information. I worked on this for about 15 years. And finally, my mother-in-law told one of the Carbon County commissioners, you really ought to go see Vernon because he's collected a lot of information. There's a lot of things he can share with you. So that started the ball rolling. Travis Moore, who was a principal at the high school in Rollins, is also a Carbon County commissioner. He invited me to a meeting and Rollins on March 9th. Last year, 20 people showed up and they showed great enthusiasm for this project because there was something out there that existed that they could use to generate income. It was also good for preservation of historic areas. So, quickly, it started making the rounds in Carbon County. They got on board and eventually they contacted Travis Doherty, who was with the Visit Casper. And he invited us up to do some presentations in Casper. And just so you know, this is my 13th trip to Casper in the last year. So we made every effort possible to communicate with the Trumbull County, City of Casper. And by the way, thanks for inviting us. This meeting is the first time with this council. We know Jenna from multiple trips. And she's been quite supportive of this, and we appreciate that. I'm not going to take up much more of your time because we know we have a time limit. So Dr. Haas is my associate. He's retired from the okay. Okay, I won't say Colorado State University. And so anyway, I lived in Rome for 12 years, and I think I've become very, very familiar with Carbon and Trumbull County over the time. And so what you're going to see is a presentation of what we think is going to be very, very beneficial to the Carbon and Trumbull County. And if you got any questions when we're finished, we'll be here now.
Afternoon, folks. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm a Parks, Recreation, Tourism professor, business partner with Vernon for the last 25 years. And he's talked about this for a decade or two, and I never took him seriously until he drove me up here. And I've become spent. This is really, really cool, what you have here in your backyard. But let me start here with this little picture. I trust that you can all see the screen. This is page 4 from the Wyoming Tourism Guide last year, page 4. It's suggesting where people can go for vacations. Is there something wrong with that picture? I would be insulted that there's absolutely no reason to stop in Casper or Rollins. It's a blank space. Something's wrong there because you have tremendous heritage assets and heritage resources, probably a couple hundred, starting with the Interp Center up there on the ridge. I mean, it's awesome. So, Amanda, don't go anywhere. So you have a whole bunch of heritage assets. Let me tell you your problem. If you listen to one sentence, here it is. You got to put a bow, a ribbon, and bundle together all your heritage assets. And you can do that in the name of a national heritage area, a congressional designation that you manage, and it doesn't cost a doggone thing. And it's tourism. Amanda, should I try this now? So let me talk about this. We talk about 15 pathways. All of you are familiar with the wagon train pathways up north there. But I think what you might not realize is that at the end of the wagon train era, migration continued, but it moved south onto the railroad line and to the highways. So together, Carbon and Natrona County has 15 major pathways that all fit around the theme of Western migration, settlement, and development, which is a unique theme for any national heritage area. Quickly, national heritage areas, an invention of President Reagan. He called a museum without walls. We're not talking about buildings. We're not talking about buying land. We're not talking about structures, infrastructures. We're talking about a label. 62 have been designated so far. Most of them are back east. Revolutionary War, Civil War. There's the Borman Trail, 2 closest, Cache La Puna and Fort Collins, where I am, which I worked on, and the South Park National Heritage Area in Colorado are your 2 closest, neither of which have a theme of pathways. These things get congressionally designated. They're administered by a local community entity. In the case of South Park, it's the local Parks and Recreation Agency that manages it. In the case of Castle Pooter, a separate nonprofit 501c3 was created. We would think that you would want to go that route. If you want to connect Carbon to Natrona County, you might want to go that route. But nevertheless, federal agency involvement, hands-on, zero. So the Park Service has a passive role. They were assigned by Congress to decide whether some area meets the criteria. There's 7 criteria that Congress put down. That's the report that we're working on. They also provide matching money. We're looking at a budget of 150. They would match by 150. No money from the city, no money from the county. No impact on property rights, signage, local communities, everyone's authorities, responsibilities are retained by, as you see now. So there's no superpower that's being imposed here. We're talking about the 15 pathways, which we think is a significant national story. The goal is to promote national heritage tourism. Important distinction here, folks, because we've gotten a few pushbacks here. We're not advancing outdoor recreation per se. This market segment that we're trying to attract are heritage tourists. These are different beasts than the outdoor recreation community that might be fly fishing in your streams or elk hunting and so on and so forth. So heritage tourism is a good, important point. Grow the local economy. This kind of sounds far-fetched, but the Castle Pooter National Heritage Area did an economic impact study, 81 million. It's hard for me to get my hands around, but it's even a tenth of that. It's bingo time for your local tourism industry. Heritage conservation, people worry about more people going to hurt your heritage assets. We would have to protect that, we'd have to manage that, and we have built-in ways to do so. The pathway would have no management, no authority, no responsibility over others. So right now we have a study team. Say Craig's on it, and Connie's on it, and Tyler representing this county. We have similar folks from Carbon County. Vernon and I are the worker bees that are carrying most of the water. We have support from Visit Casper Board, Casper Historic Preservation, Carbon County Commissioners, and on February 21st, we got permission or support from the Natrona County Commissioners. So we wanted to visit with you. What you have in front of you is a March 30th draft. It's a partial draft. It's a 30% document, we call it. We're getting input. We have a Pathways website where people can feed in questions, comments, and we're going to various meetings like this. And our team is going to various meetings like this. So by June 1st, we want to put out a 67% finished document with much more detail. August 1st, the full document, have it reviewed. September 1st, we'd like to hand it over to you all. And that's one of the points that we'll leave you with. What do you want us to do? We'd like you to stay informed, to read these documents, because someone needs to hand these documents, the final study, to the Park Service. The Park Service will take 6 months to review it. Their role is to decide, yes, it's qualified or no. But someone has to deliver it. 2 guys from Colorado can't do that. So whether we're going to be asking you to be a signature E of a transmittal letter to the Park Service in September, and we hope you will agree to do so. So I'll stop there. We'll see if we have questions.
Yeah, any questions?
Well, oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you. I appreciate you gentlemen taking the time and for all the information. I saw you speak at my Rotary Club several weeks, maybe a couple months ago now at this point, and You had a great presentation at that point too. You were able to get in a little bit more details. I was really surprised to learn that we don't have a national heritage area, especially considering what I think is very important infrastructure related westward expansion and stuff. So like you said, in regards to the map, it's a shame that none of that is sort of illustrated on the national level. And so that's why I support it, especially it comes at no cost to us. It's essentially just attempting to draw these heritage tourists. You made a point to allude to the fact that these are a different kind of tourists. These are the kind of tourists that would come visit our Fort Casper Museum, an asset that we've talked about trying to get more attendance at, the Historic Trail Center. These people are not going to the water parks and the usual amusements. They're going to be in different areas of our county, different areas of our state. And so I think it's a great niche that we have not taken advantage of in the past. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention and in support of it.
Thanks. Yes, I got to see your presentation long ago, maybe one of your earlier trips to Casper with the Visit Casper group, and I'm really pleased to see the progress. Talked about a feasibility study at that point, and this is looking really great. I think it goes a long way to clarify some of the concerns that were even brought up at that initial meeting. So appreciate all the work that you've done to get it to this point, so that we've got good answers for some of the concerns.
Appreciate it.
You said that this plan would be implemented by a 503C or something like that. Now, what authority will they have over what goes on in this area?
The two primary tasks of this entity will be to develop a mobile app. The Park Service now has a mobile app, and you can go online and find all 444 national parks, hotel information, restaurant information, food service information, on and on and on. But it's on an app. It's not another brochure. I hate brochures. And it's not another roadside sign. So a fundamental two roles of them is to develop and maintain an app, finding people, hotels that might want to advertise or market on those things, and all the sites that are eligible. Okay, so that people in Moscow could be reading this right now, or on their way across Nebraska highways, or when they're here, and they can download it. So if you get out of range, you'd have access to it. So maintaining this marketing device is one thing, and then grantsmanship. The National Heritage Area is going to introduce and open up doors to money that you don't have access to now. And any heritage asset from the Interp Center, Independence Rock, Martins Cove, Medicine Bow, Virginia Hotel, could piggyback together with this organization to go after big money. So grantsmanship and mobile app marketing information.
What happens if I go out in this area and want to drill an oil well 300 yards from where they think the Bridger Trail went?
This organization entity would have no authority. It's very clear in the legislation that they would have no role or no responsibility to influence those kinds of decisions.
So there'll be none of the BLM view shed business, yada, da, da, da,
No.
that's going on.
No.
It's not a management entity. It's an administrative entity.
And I'm concerned about the administrative side of it because I am in the oil and gas business, and we have run into situations where, no, you can't drill there, or no, you can't maintain that road there because it was the old Glen Rock Highway, and SHPO didn't want us to touch it. But yet the rancher, because we were oil and gas, but the rancher could go out and drive on it, plow it up, blade snow, do anything he wanted. And that's what my concern is that it could become another one of those ways for environmentalists, special interest groups to start trying to control what's going on private land. And that's my biggest concern about
That's a
this.
fair concern, and that's probably the number one concern, the designation of all 62 heritage sites. And we have a healthy section in there which literally captures the law as it's written and how that would be responded to. But again, this entity would have no site level responsibility, no power, no authority over an interp center or any heritage assets within the two counties. And certainly wouldn't get involved in land use decisions.
So basically, this is nothing more than a marketing tool then for tourism.
It really is a big bow. It's a big ribbon that people across America will see and be attracted to.
Now,
That's money. That's money. You want money from outside. That's beautiful money.
now, with the push for EVs and our lack of infrastructure to support them, are we going to continue to get the tourism that you would be projecting?
I have never thought about that idea. I don't think, well, this entity would have nothing to do with EV decisions.
I understand that, but this is all being sold as a way to increase tourism.
Heritage
And my
tourism.
concern is that we have a major push right now through the Washington administration to have everything electric in 11 years. Our
I
electric,
think there's still a lot of normal cars that could double your hospitality industry in 2 or 3 years.
okay,
This is some pretty serious money.
very good. But that is my other concern, is that the EVs are really going to tramp down on tourism in general, not just this project, because of travel time. Where you used to be able to drive from here to LA to take a kid to Disney World in a day, and now it's gonna be a 3-day trip one direction.
Well, they might spend the night here.
But the family
might go
won't have the
see
time
a
to take 3 days to get there and 3 back. That's my
Like,
concern,
really?
but you're right.
Yeah.
Very good. I will stop my raining on your parade. But to me, these are real concerns for the Wyoming extraction industry and our Wyoming tourist industry as a whole.
Fair.
And that's why I was asking those questions.
Thank you.
You bet. I believe Vice Mayor had a question or comment.
I just wanted to thank you guys for doing all this work, and I think this will be a tremendous asset for both counties. And so I'm kind of excited to see it come through fruition.
These the lodging tax money increased significantly.
And we do appreciate your work. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I've been down some of these roads and there's been a lot of pie in the sky as things have come along, and
We would urge you to look at our website, and as Glenn mentioned, there's sections on what you addressed about.
Yeah. And
I had read all of this before I came. That was why I was asking some of these questions, because it looked like there was an awful lot of blank spaces.
Check the website out, much more detailed.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. Did you have something, Jenna?
Well, I love the idea.
Oh, I would imagine you did.
There's a direction
Miss
request.
National Trail Center.
Yeah.
Was there a direction or request that you were looking for?
Mr. Mayor, as I heard the presenters, it sounded like they were hoping that the council would consider being a signatory to the letter of support, I guess you'd say, in partnership consistent with Carbon County and Natrona County once the report is ready for submittal. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Looks like we will be a signatory.
Well, you can read the final report first, but yes, thank you.
At this stage of the game,
Yeah,
it looked like by the thumbs we had around the table that you would get our signature.
that makes us happy. Thank you.
You betcha. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. See you.
I guess junior hockey would be next.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the opportunity to consider a new hockey partner over at the ice arena. Council is probably aware that the Roughnecks are no longer affiliated with the ice arena, and therefore opening the lane, as it were, with respect to a new partner for junior hockey competition. Zalima and her team are bringing forward ultimately an agreement that would, we believe, generate more gains and therefore more opportunities to lease ice with this partner, as well as potentially see a longer relationship than the year-long venture that the Roughnecks brought forward over the past year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to defer to Zalima and her team. We also, I understand, have a representative of the ownership team on the call, if you will, to answer any questions that you may have pertaining to this possibility.
Hey,
Ms. Salima.
Counselor. Good evening. As the city manager indicated, we have a new opportunity to bring a new junior hockey partner into the Casper Ice Arena, and we're excited for that opportunity. We just wanted to give you all a heads up before you saw a new lease agreement come through and we're questioning what was going on. And so this is our opportunity to answer any questions that you might have about the new proposed lease agreement. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review the memo in the packet and learn about some of the significant differences that this lease represents compared to the lease that we had with the Roughneck. And so the lease is really intended to be a longer term partnership as requested by the owner and the league group, and we're happy to accommodate that long-term partnership. In addition to that, though, we wanted to ensure that we had some flexibility in what we were charging for fees. And so the lease did address that through an annual escalation opportunity of 3%. In addition to that, we had some experiences with the Roughnecks that helped us learn some important lessons. And so we implemented a couple of changes within the lease agreement, including things like code of conduct, just to ensure that that relationship remained mutually beneficial and that the new leaser or lease holder would respect the other partners we have at the Casper Ice Arena, their events, their membership, so that we can all coexist really synergetically at the facility. So with that, we would like to entertain any questions. I have Nick Whips, our rec manager, and Chad Green, our Ice Arena supervisor, and then on the line is Chris Reeves, and we are all here to answer any questions that you might have about the upcoming lease agreement that you'll see if you support us.
Questions? I guess the only question that I would have, and I don't know whether you would address it or whether Mr. Reeves would address it, but does he have any local partners or is he the sole owner of the team?
Mayor, I think I would look to Chris to address that question, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Chris Reeves. I'm the sole ownership. I mean, of course, my holding company owns it, and I own like 9 other businesses, but I am the sole owner.
Very good. I knew at times there had been other people here in the local community that had been in partners with people, and I didn't know whether you had pulled some of them in to be a part of your organization or not. That was the only reason I was asking. We appreciate you coming here, and we appreciate you bringing the hockey team here. Looking forward to that. So
Yeah, no, we're excited. Let me just say, the big difference between the team that was there and the team that's coming is the kids pay to play. These kids that are coming, they're not paying. So, we have to do a really good job in the community. We've got to do good with the local and corporate sponsorships. And so we've got to do our due diligence to make this work. And, we're excited about it.
very good. We do appreciate it. Do you have any comments, Mr. City Manager?
Other than to echo what you said, Your Honor, I do not.
Very good. Then I guess we're all good with the contract? Looks like you have our approval to go forward.
Awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations. You are now the new hockey purveyor for Casper, Wyoming.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to it.
You bet. We're looking forward to it as well. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Dangerous buildings.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, we have the opportunity to get an update, if you will, pertaining to Liz's teams and their efforts relating to the abatement of dangerous buildings. As council is aware, we've been anxiously engaged in trying to deal with properties that have gone a long time without any attention, and as a result have become public safety hazards. And so with regard to that concern, as well as with respect to complaints that we get from neighbors who are adjacent to these properties, I am real happy to say that we've made a lot of progress. You're gonna see some pretty stark pictures of what it is that our folks have to encounter. Generally speaking, we find public safety calls that get us involved in this, as well as complaints from our neighbors pertaining to some of the nefarious activities that can occur in these properties. And so from my perspective, the opportunity to get these properties either removed or renovated or otherwise dealt with in a very proactive manner has been just a very welcome development in the practices of your organization, as well as with respect to the community partnership that we currently enjoy. So with that, Mr. Mayor, if I could turn some time over to Justin and his team to walk us through some of these issues, I'd sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. So as City Manager Napier stated, we have, since I took over as chief building official last June, we have taken on 9 dangerous buildings in the city of Casper. The pictures that are in the back of your packet, I'll kind of go over last. Will lead up to the before and after pictures of what these properties kind of look at. But of the 9 buildings that we have dealt with, 3 of them have been demolished. 2 of them, the city took on the responsibility of demolishing those. And another one, an investor actually purchased the property and demoed it and will be building a new construction, single family residence on that lot. 3 of them have been rehabbed, the O'Connell Lodge being one of them. That one's going through repairs. 2 other ones have been completely renovated. So they went from the worst house in the neighborhood to the nicest house in the neighborhood. And the neighbors greatly appreciate that. And then we have 3 that are currently outstanding that we're currently working on. So the big hurdle that we have to get over when we're dealing with dangerous buildings is cost. As Amber mentioned a couple weeks ago when we were presenting to council the need to establish an abatement fund, it averages $1,250 just to do what you see on this picture here, which is to secure the property and post it. Mail out mailings to the owner, notifying them that of the dangerous building and that they have to deal with it. From there, when we get to the actual demolition phase, those can run from $15,000 to $30,000. Just depends on the complexity and size of the structure we're dealing with. So in doing that, the building department, code enforcement, finance, the attorney's office, public services, Casper Fire, and the police department are trying to come together and put together this flow chart, which is also in your packet. And it's kind of lengthy and difficult to follow, but essentially, the way we deal with dangerous buildings is they come into us through PD, through fire, through just the community reaching out to us with a complaint. PD calls are mostly where they have a history of drugs. So they're getting multiple calls, for drug-related offenses. Fire, is involved, there's a house that involved, say fire, where they get in there and the house is structurally damaged and they fear that, the occupants may want to occupy the structure. So once we receive those calls, code enforcement and the building department, and often a fire representative will go and investigate the house. You also have in your packet, a document that shows the 18 criteria that the Uniform Code for the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings allows us to deem a property dangerous through. And the most frequently used items on this list are items 12, 12, 16, and 17. So these are, and 12 allows the building official to create an affidavit and deem the structure dangerous. 16, I believe. 16 is where the fire marshal. So in the event of a fire, a house being a fire hazard, that's where the fire marshal would essentially deem it dangerous. But these three items are typically when we come across a house that's a drug house. Windows are broken out, it's harboring vagrants. It may have no utilities, no heat, no water. They often have no heat or no water. It's just an inhabitable structure. And oftentimes, like for example, at the end of McKinley, 13th and McKinley, that house is actually structurally unsound. So these conditions are what allow us to deem a structure dangerous. We're not just going out there and randomly targeting, Joe Blow's house. These are houses that have a history, either with law enforcement, with the police department, or are terrifying neighbors, where you have criminal activity going on. So through this flow chart, once we identify a structure, and oftentimes we have to go the route of getting an administrative search warrant into these houses to actually investigate them and determine whether they are or are not dangerous. But once we deem them dangerous, we notify the owner. They are given a certain amount of period of time to bring the property into compliance. They can go the route of appealing by determination, or they can go ahead and secure permits or demolish the property. If they fail to do any of that, then our department records notice and order with the county, and we proceed with abating the nuisance. So we have established a flow chart here in an attempt to try to save some of the city's out-of-pocket expenses. So what the city community development does is we will hire an outside contractor to come in and test that structure or structures for asbestos. If they come back hot, meaning they have 1% or more asbestos in the property, then we have to abate it before we can demolish the house. If that's the case, community development will pay the contractor to remove the asbestos. We then have public services, the street department come in and evaluate the house to see if they feel that they can safely demolish the house. And if they do, then we will use city staff to take care of that for us. If it's too complex for streets or they don't feel that they can safely remove it, or they can't cost effectively remove it, then we will hire an outside contractor to take care of the demolition for us. Once that is done, we file a lien on the property. And then once that lien is paid, it goes back into our revolving land fund or our abatement fund. So that's kind of just a quick overview of how the dangerous building process works and the kind of flow chart that we've set up to try to minimize as much out-of-pocket expense and utilizing outside contractors as possible. And then your final items in your packet are gonna be pictures of the before and after. So this is probably our greatest success story so far. This house was a drug house. It was also being occupied by multiple people who did not have permission to be there. There were no utilities to the house. There had been a fire inside of the house. And this is one that was actually, the neighborhood was terrified because of this house. So we went in, we posted the house. It did go, on auction. It was sold to an investor. The investor came in, completely gutted the house and renovated it from studs up. So essentially it's a brand new house now. So it literally went from the worst house in the neighborhood to the nicest house on the block. So I know we haven't addressed dangerous buildings for several years, and it is not, since we have started, it's gaining traction. And as far as council's little building goal goes, this is a success story. So we would like council support just to keep moving forward with this, because it's good for the city of Casper and it's good for some of these neighborhoods. And we are, like I say, with this one, we're seeing success. And with the 9 we've dealt with, the city has only taken on the cost for 2 of them so far. So we have a pretty good success rate there as far as getting investors or owners or other parties involved with actually taking on the expense of dealing with it. So I'm here for, and Amber's here too. If we have any questions I can answer. So if you have any questions of us that I can answer, I'm here to answer that. Otherwise, I'm just here to kind of give you an overview of what we do. And just ask for your continued support and allowing us to address these.
I believe you had a question.
So just to clarify, so you guys aren't hiring somebody outside to demolish the buildings that they are required to be demolished, that the city is actually now demolishing them yourselves?
So we evaluate each property. We have public services come in, and if public services feels that they can safely remove a house, then yes, public services will do it. If they cannot safely or effectively remove the house, then we will hire an outside demolition contractor.
Follow up. So how can the outside contractor do it more safe than the city?
The outside contractors have more specialized equipment. They have more expertise in the area. So for example, if we have a commercial building where we have one portion of it it's deemed dangerous, the other portion of it isn't, and it's separated by a firewall or a structural wall. I don't know that the city staff would feel comfortable coming in and demolishing that without affecting the other portion. So that would be something that we would have an outside professional demolition contractor come in versus just a single family residential house. So we can just take a loader in there and do away with it. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So it is, public services is gonna go in and like I say, do an investigation on every structure we demo and provide us a report of whether or not they feel like they can safely and effectively remove it.
And Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, where there are unique risks that we identify, we can transfer that risk contractually to the outside contractor. So if there is a mishap and a good part of a building gets knocked down, then that risk is then borne by the outside contractor. So, you know, we've had lengthy discussions and it's going to be a case by case analysis and whether or not the risk that the city staff would take on is commensurate with, you know, their ability to address it properly. But we have that added benefit with an outside contractor of contractually shifting that risk.
Well, one of the lines of questioning is, I guess, what I'm wondering is the city discounting tipping fees and things of that nature to take the building down, whereas the outside contractor wouldn't get any kind of a discount? Is that happening?
No, we still have to track all of our expenses like it would be if we were hiring an outside contractor. So all of our man hours, tipping fees, equipment costs, any materials we need, backfill, that's all gonna be tabulated by each individual department that is involved with the abatement of these. And then when we get around to filing the lien, it's gonna be put into the lien, so we're gonna be recouping all that expense.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just to add on to that as well. So once that notice is recorded, the code allows us to then recoup any of the costs incurred during the abatement from that point forward. And so we talk about a lien, and that is the typical way that we go about trying to recoup it. But we have the option under the code of filing an individual lawsuit against the owner. So where that might come into play is if you have one individual owner or a corporation that owns maybe 15 different properties, and that individual property is not worth anything, then we could actually proceed against that owner individually, get a judgment, and then place that lien on all the other properties. So again, it's going to be a case by case analysis, and our goal is to not utilize to the extent that possible, general fund dollars, tax dollars to abate these, but to transfer those costs and make those responsible for basically the blight, responsible for paying those costs to abate it.
I just know different contractors, and I know that they didn't want the appearance that the city is in competition with outside vendors.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for the information, Justin. I was really impressed with these pictures. I'm naive, so I figured that would be a knockdown, super gross before pictures, but super impressed with the end result. My question is, I came across a post, it was several months ago, a property owner upset that we had deemed their building dangerous, and they, said they were fully committed to renovating and everything like that. In the comment threads, they ended up explaining that, well, yeah, somebody started some fires and somebody OD'd and they had to carry the body out. But I was really going to rehab this property, so I think it eventually came to light that that was probably one that warranted a dangerous building. Could you give a little bit more context? Because I know folks, there's a concern about private property rights, but then again, if you're a neighbor to one of these places, there's a public health and safety concern. So could you give some context to what sort of timeline people have if we, like when a building first gets on our radar, we get our first complaint about the property, what sort of timeline is there? What sort of avenues do those property owners have available to them? And at what point do we step in and decide, based on the criteria, the 12, 16, and 17, okay, you've had enough time, or the infractions are egregious enough that we have to take action. Do you mind providing a little bit of context in regards to what that timeline looks like?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Counselor. So it's kind of a case-by-case scenario. Of the 9 that we're currently dealing with, all of them, for the most part, have a multi-year history with either code enforcement, the fire department, Casper police, or for 13th and McKinley, for example, 4 years now, it's been hit numerous times. So the reason 13th and McKinley was posted is because it finally, that last hit finally took out, instead of just going through the gable end of the house, it took out part of the structural load bearing, or at least half of the load bearing wall, and the floor and foundation were structurally compromised. So that was an immediate life safety structural scenario where we had to post it right away. Some of these other houses, they're houses that have been vacant for years, and vagrants have finally found their way into them. So when we find houses that now have habitants that shouldn't have habitants, it's an issue, especially when there's no power to a house because they're in there cooking and trying to stay warm and everything with fire. So we have a fire hazard. So when we deem a property dangerous, the code allows us to to give them up to 60 days to either demolish the structure or pull permits and start work to make it safe. But it is at my discretion, so we typically give 35 to 60 days to have some sort of plan in place. And if the homeowner is not working with us, is not doing any form of pulling permits or hiring contractors or appealing it, then we move forward. So does that kind of answer what you're looking for?
Thank you. So yeah, it sounds like the property owner, you have the 35 to 60 days. If they disagree, they think their situation warrants more time or something, they can't appeal through, I guess it's the licensing and appeals board. There's a process in place for them to question or appeal your decision, it sounds like.
Yeah, so the Uniform Code for the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings actually has a designated appeals board that's been established for them to appeal the city's determination to.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, Counselor, Mr. Scott is absolutely correct. There is due process built into the code, and certainly I think I can speak for all the staff. Our goal is to get them to rehab it so that we're not having to go in there and deal with it. There's been several, and I can't remember if this was one of them, where the owner is deceased, had no heirs, and so that it's just been sitting vacant forever. There may be a mortgage company. In one case, it was the VA, and they move at this glacial pace. And so part of the theory, or I guess the strategy around tagging it as a dangerous building, is it allows us then to secure it, gives police very clear authority to keep folks out of there. And we'll work with the mortgage companies if they've got a buyer or if they're in the foreclosure process. You know, we'll do everything we can to get that property rehabbed or off of our rolls. But if all of that fails, then we're going to take that last step and go in and do that abatement. So definitely the last resort.
Thank you. No further questions, but I appreciate the context again, because I know private property rights are important to a lot of folks, and I want to make sure we're doing everything to maintain that. But to y'all's points, several years is a long time to be living next to one of these houses. And we hear occasionally on council from folks that are in the neighborhood of one of these houses, and it just sounds like it makes their lives absolutely miserable. So private property rights are important, but other, your neighbors are entitled to their pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness as well. And so, just another great illustration of the nuanced decisions in front of council, the nuanced decisions that you have to grapple with on a day-to-day basis. Very few situations are black and white. So I appreciate you providing the extra context.
Any other questions or comments? Are we all in favor of them continuing on with their program? Looks like you got your direction there.
Right.
Continue on.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors.
And we're glad to see that we are able to help the neighborhoods and the property owners. So thank you. Guess the next one is the admin fees for the forced abatements and towing.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, councilors. This is a follow-up item, as it were, with regard to some of the homework that's been taking place in the evaluation of the current body of ordinances that hopefully, with your blessing, with some changes here that Amber will address with us here tonight, will theoretically move staff away from that of being sort of the enforcers and the property managers with regard to property owners who incessantly provide reasons for enforcement matters to be taken up. Rather, hopefully incentivizing those same owners to dealing with their enforcement matters themselves, so that indeed we don't have to send Amber and her team over to mitigate these matters on their behalf. A lot of that, of course, is with respect to a carefully structured fee program that, again, hopefully incentivizes these chronic offenders and moves the government, as it were, out of the management of their deficiencies. And so with that, if I could, Mr. Mayor, defer to Amber to walk us through a lot of the detail of what that means, I would certainly appreciate that.
Ms. Amber?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, councilors, here again. And wanted to bring this to you. We'd had, previous conversations, as the city manager alluded to, that we have brought forth the, change in ordinance so that we can do this. This is gonna kind of toss some numbers to you, so that we can maybe get them on resolution and they can be adopted at the same time, our third reading of the ordinance. So they're kind of in unison, and then we can start applying those, should you agree. So we looked and took a hard, long look at this and kind of looked at our numbers and how much we have recidivism. I'm gonna kind of jump a little bit to give you just an idea of what kind of sparked this. One house in particular, from our different database changes over the past few years, we've lost some of that historical data, but I can tell you from the past 8 years, we've consistently gone to this house every year, multiple times a year, to be their private mowing service. The people that are living in this house pay the bill, which is very rare, but they are paying the bill. The problem we have is the owner of this house, near as I can find by any of my searches, passed away in 2006. So I assume family is living there. They're paying the taxes on it. The water bill hasn't changed the name in many years. And so long as they're flying under the radar and paying their bills, nothing gets kind of flagged. The problem we have is my staff, prior staff, has spent every summer, multiple times in the summer, repeating this house and mowing. So such in the fact that we've already opened a case this year because we've had a little bit of moisture. Their weeds are, or their grass is actually in violation. We've opened a case already again this year. So that's kind of where this stems from. This is just one house. I could bore you to tears with the number of houses that we go back to every year. So that is kind of the back door to why we're asking this, and the numbers that we came up with. So we're looking back, past the memo into the numbers that I did send into your packet. The average mowing in our community, generally average, not everyone, ranges between $75 maybe to $100 to mow a property. It's determined by square footage costs. So we as staff came up with the idea of a $40 administrative fee. That covers us going out there for each weed violation. We get at least 2 visits from a staff member as well as mailings. Now we do mail to the property owners as well as anybody that might be on the water bill. So if I'm a landlord and the mayor is my tenant, we make our due diligence to notify everybody that we have an intent and to come mow if you don't take care of it. So we give everybody that opportunity. If that is not taken care of, we come back and mow. If it's one of our habitual houses that we just know that we're gonna have to come mow, we will just assign a contractor at the expired time and get that on the radar to get mowed. If it's a house that we don't have a history with, we will make an effort to leave what we call a door hanger on the door to say, hey, we're coming to mow. If you don't get this mowed or call us with an intent to mow by a certain date, we're gonna do that. So that makes it a third trip. Is that on us? Probably, but it's also, again, that extending that opportunity to the property owner or the tenant to take care of this problem so that they don't see a bill from us. Because obviously our mowing is gonna be a little bit more expensive than a private contractor to mow it or yourself. So that's where we came up with the $40. So what we would do, on that last page, I believe we've got some examples, and it does get kind of muddy. I will walk anybody through it that has some questions about it, but basically, if we mow a property and the actual cost of that mowing is $125, we'll assess the $40 abatement or administrative fee, which would make it $165. We go back out to this problem house again in a few weeks, depending on the moisture levels that we get here. And mow it a second time, again, it's gonna be that 125 plus $40. We've now reached that top level of $300 is kind of where we picked that we want to start escalating the fees to make this. Obviously, we're not getting through to these. So we would escalate that and add on the 30%, for the threshold of you're not catching on. We're gonna kind of help you along with this because we're still spending a lot of time here. When I have a staff of 2 code enforcement officers for the city, weeds become very, very difficult to manage in the summer. We will start to see a leveling off mostly around August, but April, May, June, it takes a long time for us to catch our traction up on that when people get behind. And sometimes we're quick on the ball and we see a house that's in violation, we get those letters out real quick and we don't make those folks happy either, but we get them on the radar. Our staff spends a lot of time chasing these weeds and, if we can get folks to know that this isn't something, we're not the private mowing service here. We all know every summer weeds grow. It's not an anomaly that occurs, you know, like a snowmageddon where we can't get to the snow removal. We know that in summertime and springtime, that's what happens. So it's holding the homeowners and the tenants accountable for maintenance of that and keeping that fire hazard down, keeping the problem with rodents. If we have a lot of tall weeds and grass. So by adding that fee, we're hopeful that that would be amenable to you to start helping to get this process started. The other one is towing fees. Historically, code enforcement has never charged for towing vehicles off of private property that are deemed as junk vehicles. By ordinance, you're allowed 1 vehicle on your property, but it has to be operable. It doesn't have to be licensed. But we do have some apartment complexes in town, as well as even private property owners that collect vehicles that they might call project vehicles, or they're tenants that have come and gone and they just left behind stuff. Some properties are not maybe monitored by the landlords, and then they come by and they see 3 or 4 vehicles that don't have doors, don't have engines, have flat tires, and then they want us to come clean them up. This is an exorbitant draw of staff time, because when it comes to removing something of a monetary value, we have extra steps legally before I can go on your private property and remove something of monetary value, presumably. So it's more steps, more mailings, more due diligence, more visits to the property and the sites. Our record companies, we've been blessed up until this point to say that they have not passed on the rate of what they charge us. But to take their staff and their vehicles to come to tow our vehicles for us as deemed junk, then that record company can't take a call for the PD for a crash and make that money back. Those record companies have to sit on those vehicles at their property for a period of time before they can apply for a junk title or a title for sale. And then they can either sell it to Crush Co. or they can sell it at auction and recoup their money. That is a huge burden on them because they have to hold those vehicles for times, and then they have to apply for the titles, pay for all that, plus their staff and their vehicles to take junk vehicles, if you will, off the property. So that being said, record companies that we only have 2 that are agreeable to working with us at this point out of all the record companies in town. And they will charge $195 per vehicle. And that's a pass-on rate. That's a rate that they would charge the mayor to come take a vehicle off his property. So it's not that they're up in it. It's not that they're padding that number. That's what they would charge a private citizen to come tow. So we would charge the $195 for the record, pass that on and pay them as a vendor. Apply the $40 administrative fee for the paperwork that we have to go through. That being said, if I keep using you, I'm sorry, but if the mayor has 3 vehicles on his property, we escalate that up for 3 vehicles. you get the $195, plus you get the $40 abatement for the first vehicle. After that, we would charge the 30%. Again, as an incentive to, there's other options. We give plenty of time. We will work with homeowners to say, hey, I'm trying to get a title so that I can get it sold. We have had, people say, well, my son's in prison. I need to get to him to need to find out where the title is. We will work with folks. We're not just, black and white on that. There is a gray area, but we have to see forward movement. We don't want to just keep extending these folks out. But again, that's staff time. It's revisits to the property. So that's where this numbering system kind of comes from. And I know there's a lot of formulas on that back page. So I'll work through it with you if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to ask, kind of how we came to that. That's kind of the root cause of where we're at.
Question.
Yeah, my only question on the escalation is that it's sort of like a one-time escalation, or does it escalate? If it's already been escalated once, does it escalate, say on the fifth violation or whatever it is, does it go up another 30% from the last fee?
For the mowing or the?
Mowing is what I was looking at.
Okay, so once we breach that, that number that we picked, which would be the 300, it's for the calendar year. So if I were to send out a notice for a mowing violation, once you get that notice, it's valid until December 31st of that calendar year. So we can come mow your property without further notice. Once it's in violation, the rest of the year until the end of the year. So that 30% would be taxed. Once we break that 300 mark, the rest of the year, that 30% will be escalated up.
Okay, thanks.
Vice Mayor.
Two questions. So basically you start over every year at the same property. And so you can mow and accumulate all of this money. Say they didn't pay the city, then you start over again the following year with the lower rates and then it builds up. Correct?
That's how, that's generally speaking, that's how we do it. Because our mowing violations zero out in December. Now, if that's something that council wants to say, no, look, you've been to property A for 8 years, we need to come up with a different formula for those just egregious violators. Certainly I will.
That leads into my
address that.
second one. So say you have somebody that is just piling for 8 years and we're holding $10,000 worth of mowings and whatever else. Do we have a plan to do anything about that, or does the city just keep accruing the costs?
We do our traditional collection methods. We've also discussed in-house, once we reach a certain threshold, we go back to linking the property and putting a lien on that specific property. We've been in conversation many times with the city attorney about that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Amber's exactly correct. Typically, we would go to collection efforts first, but if it's a large enough sum and it makes sense to get my office involved, and we can, pursue any legal collection means, whether it's filing suit, placing a lien on the property. We're not staffed to be a collection agency, so we're not going to go after everyone. But if you had a $10,000 sum, that's probably enough to merit some additional efforts. And so again, we'll look at it on a case by case basis and make those determinations. The one thing I did notice in here in the proposed resolution is we would want to just specify that it's an annual, because it says cumulative, but it doesn't say annual. So we would make that change, assuming that's the direction council would want to go.
Questions? Comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Amber, for all the information. I believe the very first time we started talking about this, I don't remember if it was earlier this year or maybe even last year, summer or fall, but we had a constituent raise concerns about, willful negligence is one thing, but they raised the scenario of a disabled senior on a fixed income. And so what sort of assurances or resources are available? I know that constituent at the time offered to help create a nonprofit or volunteer group to handle those sorts of situations. And I don't know if that ever materialized, but to revisit that, because my memory's a bit foggy. How would we handle a scenario like that? What resources, if any, are available to somebody who maybe would like, would want to maintain their property, but can't for a variety of reasons?
We do have, I have worked in the past with Rotary, who's gone out and done some work, and helped some folks that were down on their luck. We do try to encourage them to reach out to, churches, church groups. Sometimes we have kids in the neighborhood that wanna, kind of walk up and down the sidewalk with a lawnmower and wanna mow. We don't have any established, kind of groups that beyond Rotary that have stepped up and done anything. So I don't have any programs or knowledge of any of, to help. But obviously, it's something too, that if I understand and know that they're elderly, and they just don't have the means, or they've been in the hospital. Nothing I would say we have to tack on the administrative fee to them. But if it's across the board, that's what we decide. I hesitate to say it's a case by case, because then everybody can plead their case, and then I become kind of bogged down with who meets what criteria, but I certainly do look to find alternative motives or, options for them. And if Rotary does, have the ability someday, have that.
Thank you. I guess to that point, I'm a member of the Monday Casper Rotary Club, and so I guess if you're someone in that situation, and someone in that situation, feel free to reach out, because our club does help folks rehab, but if they're in dire straits, we do that. So I guess I would just encourage folks to reach out. Happy to make those connections when possible.
Any other questions? Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, just to kind of dovetail a little bit with regard to the current conversation, we try to be real sensitive to not making the city, the pivot point for the dealing of social services throughout the community. And so that becomes a real difficult balance to find. But we also would have you remember that a lot of these cases don't even come on our radar until we have, neighbors who are reaching out and saying, we've got to do something. There's a horrendous situation going on next door, which is not unlike the previous conversation, which is typically how we get involved. If it's not a police interaction or a fire that is taking place or whatever. So please be mindful that we don't go out trying to bust people's heads over any of these issues. We generally get involved because there's a neighborhood outcry, either to you or to us, with regard to involvement needing to be had.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, just to be clear, if the admin fees are adopted, I think they are uniform. If they meet those criteria that are applied, I would be very hesitant to say we could just waive them, because could be arbitrary. And then to combat that, then you would have to build in all kinds of due process. And now we've just created 3 times the amount of work for ourselves. So again, to the city manager's point, Amber's point, I think at the outset, we're going to assess, if they're elderly, if they're medically unable to do it. And that would be the intersection point to that.
Thank you. Excuse me. Any other questions or comments?
You're up, please. So this is a direction requested. Is there anything else that?
So, Madam Vice, we just really need to know if council's comfortable with us moving forward on a formal basis. And if that is the case, we will proceed to that end.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Direction.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And next is a Water Smart Environmental Resources Grant.
Madam Vice Mayor, council is aware that the city has been successful in procuring a grant through the Bureau of Reclamation in this program that you just identified. We are at the point where we can be bringing forward a formal agreement between the city and the feds. And we wanted to be sure that you understood all of the city's obligations as it relates to that grant, which, by the way, I would say is a big win on the part of the staff team that put this together and secured this that under the guidance of Jolene and Tom. With that, we'd like you to be comfortable that you can ask any of the questions that you need, given that this is on the larger side of the grants that we typically get. And again, I want to emphasize how fortunate we are to be able to look at this and move forward in the Isaac Walton reach of the river redevelopment project as a result. And so with that, if I could turn some time over to Jolene and Tom to walk us through some of those details, I appreciate that.
Vice Mayor, Council, we're pretty darned excited that shortly coming before you and for your approval will be a $3 million grant from the Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant program to construct what we call the Isaac Walton Reach. And it's from star to star. So it starts where we left off at the water treatment plant and goes to right the Red Star, the bend over in the Isaac Walton area. Project estimated cost is about $4 million, and the grant from the Bureau of Reclamation is $3 million. It's matched with $123,329 of in-kind services, mostly coming in the form of Russian olive removal and a few archaeological things that we will do over in that reach. We will have a cash match of $829,000. $60,000 of that was donated by the Isaac Walton League to us. $250,000 may be from the regional water system. It's in their budget. If it gets approved, that it will be, it will come from that. It will, that it will come from them. And then the rest of it would be 1% number 16 money that was allocated to river restoration. This is a 2-year grant. We will start this fall in removing Russian olives, and shortly, once the contract gets here and you approve the contract, we will start design and some of our cultural work that has to be done preparing for that. And if everything goes right, then we would plan to construct this in the fall of 2025.
Any questions? Okay.
Vice Mayor, thanks Jolene and Tom for the information on the topic. What sort of work do you expect? Very exciting to hear about the grant. What sort of work do you expect to be able to do should we secure the grant in the area? I guess I was just missing some of those details.
So this is part of our river restoration work that you may have seen in the 4 other reaches where we've done. Usually it's equipment in the river. We're adding structure to banks where they're eroding very badly with wood tow, for example. We may add rock structures that create some complexity and ripples in the water that help for fish, if you will. The interesting thing about this project, the whole river project really, is that it's helping on so many levels. And the city has always been in this project for water quality. It improves our water quality, and the river is the source of our drinking water. This one, with the Russian olives that we will take out, Russian olives take up about 75 gallons of water per day. So when we take them out of the water well field, that will be part of this. We'll be saving a lot of water that comes into that. But it will be a complete construction project where we're designing and constructing. Am I answering your question correctly, Councilor?
Yes, I appreciate that. I do know we've talked about, it looks like this would be in the area of the Oxbow where Chamberlain Road's adjacent, and I know there's been a concern of that road eventually washing out over time. So I'm glad to hear that that's kind of within the scope of this project. Do you foresee it on the note of the Russian olives, very interesting that we get 75 gallons a day, especially considering, I think they're pretty ugly plants. So it's crazy to think that they suck up that much, but, do you expect it to just keep more water in the river, or do you expect it to increase production at our wells?
Mayor, councilors, that remains to be seen. Hopefully, by taking the Russian olives, we will have more water that we will be able to draw from our wells because we'll have more groundwater. But groundwater is influenced by the river in that area, and so that remains to be seen.
Thank you. And then I guess I would just like to know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I was really interested to learn, since getting on council, that all of the water that the city of Casper uses is well-derived, short of the summer season, I believe. And so again, correct the record if I'm off on that, but I believe, for the majority of the year, the water we all drink and use is well-derived. I just thought that was very interesting.
Mayor, councilors, that is generally the case.
Did you have anybody else who was on the list?
Yep.
Thank you all for your patience. I appreciate that. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, just to be emphatic about one point, one of the things that council is typically concerned about, and deservedly so, is with regard to the financial commitments that these kinds of grants often require. I want to bring out that not only do we have money on hand, which does comply with council's cash on hand doctrine for a lot of these kinds of projects, we also have a number of partnerships that have come forward to help with the support of this type of a program, this type of a grant. And so with that, the exposure for the city as it relates to leveraging this kind of a size of a grant is very, very limited. And again, is relegated to money that is already on hand or has been awarded or will be awarded soon from our partners. And so it's a good situation. It seems like a win-win all the way around.
So. Good. Looks like it's a go.
Thank you.
Next would be credit card fees. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have talked quite a bit as a group about the differing approach as it relates to credit card fees. Council is aware that our biggest effort to date has been with regard to changing the model by which credit card fees are collected in our utilities. And hopefully council is happy with the notion that $100,000 have been saved, as it were, with regard to changing our model in the utilities alone. And so what we'd like to do is get council's blessing to take those efforts to another level and move essentially outside of utilities into some of our other cash collection areas, not cash collection areas, but certainly where we see credit cards and debit cards being used throughout the organization. I've asked Jill to come forward and visit with you tonight, in that your direction could very well have an impact on the budget that we're about to bring forward to you for formal consideration. And so with that, if I could turn some time over to Jill to walk us through that, I would certainly appreciate that.
We would probably have no problem with that as long as we start getting our streets plowed in the wintertime as council members. We can't bargain that in there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
My street gets plowed.
Do
My street gets plowed.
Your street gets, mine does.
If you live on a collector, we can probably talk.
Okay. Just had to ask.
Yeah.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. So this is a part 2 of our credit card discussion. As the city manager has already mentioned, we have saved over $100,000 in credit card fees from 2023 to 2024. So that's been a really great thing. We are looking to expand the service fee model, which basically allows us to collect the money that's owed to us, but the credit card fee that's charged by the processor is charged to the customer. So we don't even get any of that. It just goes directly to the customer. So the areas that we're looking to expand into are all general fund departments or divisions. We're looking at the cemetery, the police department, Metro Animal Shelter, which is kind of a subset of the general fund, the community development group, engineering, city clerk's office, and the municipal court. If you'll notice from the chart that we provided for you, the city is allocated a percentage. So if we were to absorb the fee for the cemetery, we would be charged 3.25%. We don't mark that up. We pass that along exactly to the customer. So there's no markup or anything like that. We don't make a profit off of that. We also do have a minimum charge. So for example, if you were going to charge a penny, you would be charged $2 in your fee. However, if you got up to $100, you wouldn't be charged the $2 anymore. You would be charged the percentage, which would be for the cemetery, $3.25. So as we talked before, one of the concerns was if we had a department or division that the only way to pay was with a credit card, that we really wouldn't want to do that because they're really not given any other options. So with all of these groups, each one of them had the ability to pay by card, check, or cash. When we originally talked about the community development group, they were looking to move to more of an online system for their permits and licenses. They will still do the online system. However, they will still allow people to come in and pay with a check or cash if they choose to. So there is a way to get around that fee if people do not want to pay it. So other than that, I don't have any further information. We are looking to save about $14,500 out of the fiscal year 25 budget by removing these fees. So definitely much smaller impact than the utility bills had, but still a good impact nonetheless. Can I answer any questions?
Ms. Sussman?
I just was a little confused. So are there going to be any fees for the ACH? Or is it just, we're just simply strictly talking credit cards here?
Madam Mayor, or Vice Mayor, there is no fees for an ACH. If we do an ACH pull from your account, there is no fee involved in that. It's just credit card related, credit debit cards.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Pollock?
Thank you. I don't have any questions on the philosophy behind this generally, but I was surprised to see such a wide variation. What percentages we're seeing across departments? Are we using different card processors across departments, or why do we see that variation?
So, Mayor, Councilor, the credit card processor is who creates these fees, and it's based on risk. So, for example, in the muni court, if there's a risk of more chargebacks or something like that, they were going to charge a higher fee. If you look at some of the other areas for community development, it's a little bit higher because it could be a business card with rewards or something like that. So these are created by the processor. They're not something that we have any say in.
Just default, so it's one processor, but they treat departments differently based on what type of transactions they're completing with them.
Mayor, Councilor, that is correct.
Thanks.
Councilor Gamrow?
Thanks, Mayor. That was actually my question. So I appreciate you providing the information and making folks are aware. You know, I would never be supportive of processing fees if it was the only option. So I appreciate you reminding us that if you would like to avoid those fees and want to pay by check or cash, you are welcome to do that as well. Or ACH withdrawal, which is how I pay my utilities. Thank you.
So are we all willing to go ahead and move forward? Looks like we're gonna make another $14,000 this year.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Penny here and a penny there.
We're not gonna
City has
make
some
it.
real money.
We're gonna save it. We're not making
But see,
it.
that's where I figured with all this money saving, we could go ahead and run snow plows past all of the council. No,
Wouldn't advise it.
I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
I'm against it.
You're against it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just to be clear too, while this is the second phase of considering these kinds of changes, this is not the last phase. we've got a number of other cost centers and areas that we hope to bring forward when we're ready to do so. So
Sounds great.
thank you.
Appreciate the continuous improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lamb Summer Voting Delegate.
Mr. Mayor, this is a relatively easy and routine item that we bring forward to you at this time of the year ahead of the summer convention for WHAM. For those who are attending WHAM and the summer convention specifically, we need to designate a voting delegate as well as an alternate voting delegate. In that those members will be asked to vote on a number of business items that are coming forward to the body as a whole during the WHAM conference this summer. And so for those who are going, if council would be open to appointing one or both of those attendees, that would help us so that we can be sure that we have a vote, as it were, during those membership and business items.
To follow up on that, I believe you are a board member, is that right?
I am. We have our next board meeting Friday in Douglas.
I knew that. Now, are you planning on going to summer convention?
Tentatively.
Is anybody else planning on going to summer convention?
Mhm.
You are. Guess which one of you would prefer to be the voting and the other one the alternate?
I personally have no plans. I believe, did we designate you, last year for it?
And then you and I swapped because, you voted while I finished my class.
Okay. Yeah, I
Right.
personally have no preference.
I can be the voting and then him the alternate.
Very good. Everybody in agreement with that? That Kyle will be the voting member and Lisa will be the, I'm sorry, I'm screwing that up. Lisa will be the voting member, the vice mayor will be the voting member, and Kyle will be the alternate. Very good. Is that,
Follow up accordingly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
your staff will take care of the paperwork then on that?
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you. Looks like we're getting ready. Come on down. Looks like the fire self-inspection fees resolution is next up.
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly right. And this is really meant to be a companion piece to the hopeful approval of the third reading of this ordinance. The resolution, of course, would be necessary to actually establish the fees that the ordinance addresses. And so with that, we asked the deputy chief to come and visit with you tonight so you can have that preview of what that resolution will contain.
And this kind of follows along the same lines as the fees for the abatement and everything following the third reading of that ordinance.
With regard to the self-inspection partnership that the department would have with businesses who qualify.
Yes.
That's the ordinance we're talking.
Yeah. Very good.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, thanks for having me again this evening. So once again, just for clarification, the fire self-inspection ordinance is designed to be a collaboration with the business owners in town that qualify on those certain occupancies to do self-inspections and provide those to the fire department. Primary goal of this is to help ease some burden and some impact on fire department services and personnel. The fee structure comes into play as an incentivization to participate in the free self-inspection program. Those persons that would have the option and choose not to be a part of the self-inspection program, or those persons that chose not to participate effectively and help work through the system would then have to be placed into, they would still need their fire inspections done. So we'll have to put them into a rotation where we provide those inspections for them with the traditional fire engine company driving out to their location with 3 firefighters on it, doing the inspection, pulling that unit out of service to do that, not out of service, but out of occupying that time frame of the day for them to go do that and then impacting our operations, in that fashion. So, this is strictly an incentivization to participate in the program, in good faith, and, B, to incentivize, follow-up and make sure that, those violations are taken care of appropriately when found. There have been historically some situations where, fire inspection would take place, a violation would be found, and given, even given all the motivation that we can, still not achieve resolution appropriately within a time frame that's appropriate. So this also would be a fee-based, situation. We have provided in the documentation a suggested minimum fee, I guess is a way to put it. The way these fees would work for those businesses that are eligible to participate in the FSIP program, but either cannot or choose not to, due to removal or just choose not to take part. The initial inspection fee that we have, proposed is $150 for that first inspection. And then the associated follow-up inspection, should there be one. Not uncommon. First time out, we find some issues that can't be addressed right away. We may need to return within that 30-day period, to verify that violation or deficiency was corrected. So it kind of covers your first visit, and a second visit should need be to make sure those violations were taken care of. The second fee, or the next fee, would be a graduation up to the $300 level from there for any subsequent inspections that we have to follow after that second visit. So if we have to go back 3, 4, 5, 6 times to try and get that deficiency taken care of, we want that fee to accumulate enough to motivate that individual to get that taken care of. So that's kind of where the fees are coming from. The hope is, the goal is, with this FSIP ordinance, we get 100% participation citywide. Everybody gets to participate for free. We offer all sorts of education and support, and at times maybe even some on-site assistance to try and help them become confident enough to perform these inspections and be a very welcome partner in that program. I am hopeful, and I would hope that this incentivization doesn't come to fruition. I don't want to have to collect fees to do this, to make people safe. So we just want to work with them. But I would open it up for any questions at this point. That's pretty much my
Councilor Pollock.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is, do you anticipate any sort of like auditing process to be required to confirm, double check, even on like a random basis, the results that are being submitted to you from businesses?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, absolutely, yes. That's also built into the ordinance. Those participants in the FSIP program are going to have a visit from the fire department on a recurring basis, but it's not going to be as traditionally has been once every year, once every other year. Those business owners are taking on some of that responsibility and partnering with us to provide some of those inspections. So in the ordinance, no more often than once every 3 years will that business be visited and audited by the fire department, either by a member of my division, the Inspection Community Risk Reduction Division, or fire engine and some engine company personnel would come out, audit that. What they'll be looking for, they'll perform an entire full fire inspection like they normally would. They'll point out anything that the business owner may have missed. The idea is this isn't a gotcha type of inspection. to try and get you removed from the program or anything like that. It's, hey, there's a few items here that you missed. For next time, these are some things to look for. It's an educational opportunity. And as such, you know, hopefully builds a good relationship with those business owners to continue on. But yes, indeed, we will be following up and making sure that we're meeting the benchmarks we need to when it comes to that fire safety.
Thank you. And my second question is related to the fees. Are these envisioned to be in a number of the things that fire inspection is looking at are often the responsibility of the building owner more so than the tenant. So do you envision these fees being levied to the building owner or to the tenant?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Counselor, that's a great question. Depending on the circumstance, it kind of depends on who that might fall upon. So in the fire code, it does specify that a building owner would be responsible for things like fire alarms, fire sprinkler systems, you know, the infrastructure that's attached to the building, the fire and life safety systems attached to the structure. So the fire code says that's when a building owner would be more inclined to be held responsible for that. Now, depending on lease agreements and stuff, sometimes building owners try and transfer some of that responsibility onto the occupants or their lessees or their, you know, so forth. We let them sort that out. The fire code officials, you know, work with the building owner to make sure that things get taken care of appropriately for those. Now, as far as in the operations of the standard business operations, if we come in and the business owner is utilizing an extension cord to work a function of their business and it's being used inappropriately, then that citation, that problem, I would surmise would most likely be charged back to the business owner because it was an issue that was brought about by the business. So that's how that would lean.
Thanks.
No problem.
Any other questions? I had one. The inspections that you folks go out and do then is the audit part of it, the trust but verify. Now, will there be a fee associated with that inspection?
Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. No, sir. If you're participating in the fire self-inspection program in good faith and everything's going our way, those audit inspections are there's no fees associated with those. It would only be if you chose not to participate or if for reasons of not participating in good faith, you were removed from the program and no longer eligible to participate, that you would have any fees.
Very good. No further questions. Everybody okay with the fee schedule? Looks like you're good to go.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to it Tuesday night. CPU Advisory Board ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is an opportunity to consider a move, if you will, from an ordinance standpoint to improve efficiency and effectiveness, particularly as it relates to the staff time that you know we're all concerned about, as well as I would suggest those who volunteer for the variety of things that we need volunteers for. In this particular case, we're talking about the CPU Advisory Board. I would suggest that the punchline of this proposed change is that this is indeed an outmoded feature in our current practice that really has outlived its practical necessity. And so if you'll keep that in mind with regard to what it is that Mr. Brower is going to walk us through and the need for these changes as we see it, hopefully you'll agree and be able to support us as we move forward to hopefully bring this to the floor for your formal consideration.
Very good. Mr. Brower.
Mayor, councilors, thank you for this opportunity tonight. This is something we've been discussing for quite some time. And I think it does try to bring some level of efficiency and streamlining and consistency to our local government. It's interesting to recall back pre-1991 when we used to have a Board of Public Utilities. which there's still a couple of those around the state, Cheyenne being the most notable one. But it was basically a separate entity that ran all the water and sewer. And in 1991, it was dissolved and it was brought underneath the city government. And at that point, and I think it was kind of a nod to, hey, we still need an advisory board. This CPU advisory board was established at that point in time. And they kind of had 4 primary goals. The first was to hear damage claims. I personally remember being involved with one of those where the sewer backed up in my parents' house and went there and said, hey, what do we do about this? And got kind of the unfortunate news that it was their responsibility because it was their service line. And so it was one of the things that they do is review damage claims. Now, ultimately, those damage claims would often end up at city council as well. Second thing is reviewing utility rates and commenting on what they believed the utility rate should or should not be, or increases in there. The third thing is reviewing capital projects. And the fourth thing was advice concerning other utility related matters. And examples of these are if somebody wants to tie into a city water main and they're outside of the city limits and they're asking for that, or somebody, I remember one recently where we had the issue about a tap fee that wasn't paid, a system investment charge that wasn't paid. And so the board would sit there as an advisory group on how we should handle these issues. It's interesting because since that time, the damage claims are all reviewed by WARM. And so that whole responsibility has kind of been taken over by WARM and risk management. The second 2 components, which are utility rates and capital projects, are thoroughly overseen by this board of councilors. And that is every year we come to you with a capital budget that was recently presented, and also with proposals to increases in rates that are needed to properly fund those enterprise funds. So the final thing is just advice concerning utility related matters. And again, the confusion or kind of the wide spot in the road is oftentimes the CPU advisory board. When those issues come in, the first thing happens is staff reviews them. And we review them from a standpoint of the ordinance and our rules and what our practices are. And then we present those to the CPU advisory board. And sometimes maybe they would have a sympathetic ear to that and say, well, we disagree with staff, but we don't want to charge them this fee, or we do want to allow them to tap in. And then ultimately, then that would have to come to council. And at council, we would all say, hey, here's our ordinances and our rules and why we selected this. And oftentimes council would override the CPU advisory board. So again, we see it as kind of a wide spot in the road. We've greatly appreciated all the work when it was first started out as kind of being that front line of observation on utility rates and capital projects and even the risk management. But it really has kind of become outdated, and it is a significant amount of time and effort and expense to set up, advertise, keep the minutes for, and hold those meetings. And since the consideration of this has come forward and we've closely reviewed this ordinance, we've had no CPU advisory board meetings, I think, in the last 6 months roughly. And so our recommendation, and we've identified changes to the ordinance, and those changes are really fairly straightforward because it just strikes out all of the responsibilities of the CPU advisory board and keeps the city council in place as being the government entity that oversees those and reviews those. So it is absolutely, my thanks to Bruce Martin. He's the one that really led the charge on this. But Bruce and I, and then with the help of Eric, we reviewed these and would strongly recommend that we go forward with the revisions to the ordinances, and thank the CPU advisory board for their help in the past. But I guess wave goodbye and accept and embrace and kind of lean into a more streamlined approach to this process. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from anybody? Well, I know that's one council liaison that we won't have to appoint, and will stop a lot of grumbling from my standpoint for the one that got stuck with the 7 o'clock Wednesday morning meeting. So I think it's a good idea. But yes, having been that liaison, I had kind of wondered, it seemed like it was a redundant issue, so to speak. So looks like we're all in favor of it. Let's get it out of there.
Thank you very much.
You bet. And if you need coffee and donuts at 7 o'clock, let me know and I'll go meet you for coffee and donuts.
Yeah.
Is the vote binding right now? Cause
No.
I'm thinking about changing my vote so we can keep you on it. So you keep going.
Or not going. You haven't gone, it hasn't met in 6 months.
Just thanks, Ray. I like you too. Very good. So next looks like is the agenda review.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for the work tonight. I know a lot of this seems fairly tedious and mundane, but the reality is it's real helpful to have your feedback and of course your blessing. Because every one of these items are beneficial to us in terms of trying to be better and trying to meet needs of the community. And I certainly want to appreciate also the staff work that has taken place in order to bring these items forward to you tonight. As far as the agenda is concerned, or the grid document, if you will, which, as if you don't know what I'm talking about, is this document right here.
Never seen it.
That's comforting.
What is this?
Right. You'll notice that the next several meetings are really oriented around trying to get the budget in your hands and then hopefully review the budget and approve it in the third week in June. One of those steps takes place actually next week, wherein we deliver the preliminary budget. That is not meant to be a discussion point. It really isn't meant to be an analysis point or a delivery wherein we give you a presentation and so on. It really is only meant to be that first step that we take from a statutory standpoint to give you the raw numbers. And so you don't have to anticipate that we've got, okay, May 7th. Yeah, sorry about that. Next week we are regretfully off. Unless you want to change that.
No.
No? Okay.
As a matter of fact, somebody has scheduled me for something on that Tuesday morning.
I know. I hate it when we lose our mayor in the community.
But anyhow.
So anyhow, that's right. We are off next week as it relates to this meeting.
Yes.
But May 7th, you're going to be getting raw numbers. So mark that on your calendar if you haven't.
And along those lines, I believe that is statutorily required by that date as well, isn't it?
100%.
Yes.
That is exactly right.
Yes.
You will notice, however, later in the grid document, we will be coming to you with formal presentation and discussion opportunity on the 28th as it relates to that document and presentation and so on. You will at least have the opportunity to review numbers, however, prior to that date. And then, of course, once we go through that work session and discussion opportunity, your statutory obligation to pass the budget takes place in that third meeting in June, which I referenced earlier. I also yes,
as a comment along that, I expect counselors to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed that Tuesday evening on the 28th, because that is the Tuesday after the Memorial Day holiday. So don't go out and party too much. We need you here and ready to discuss.
Did that last year too.
We have to have a little joy in our life.
I know, yes, I couldn't agree more.
Continue on, Mr. City.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, no problem. I also like to direct your attention to the back page entitled Future Agenda Items, to be sure that you're tracking with what is on our near horizon in terms of the ideas and concepts and study topics, in most cases, that you may have an interest in. So if you don't see anything that's docketed or on that future page that you do have an interest in and it hasn't been brought before the council, or we may have forgotten, this would be the opportunity to address that particular matter, whatever it might be. And that is my report, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. And I do see there that we will be going over the utility rate models as we're going through the budget preparation.
Mr. Mayor, that's actually a different item that is with regard to the Raptalis discussion, the study that's taking place. And so pursuant to that study, that outcome and those recommendations and so forth, we anticipate that that may be in May, but it could be in June. It won't necessarily, however, be something that we need to address with the version of the budget that we'll be delivering to you on the 28th, but may, however, have a big impact with respect to the rate hearings that we typically prepare for in November and December.
Okay. Very good. Just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very good. Anything else? Oh,
I have a question. Did that open container talk get put on here?
It is, Mr. Mayor, docketed for.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You betcha.
okay. Any other questions about the agenda item? Very good. Then I guess we will go ahead and go with council around the table. But I'm gonna want to make, I will start off with one announcement that I want to make regarding a grant that we received. In March of 23, the city of Casper requested Representative Hagerman's office to support a funding application to the Transportation, Housing and Urban Development Economic Development Initiative for the North Platte Sanitary Sewer Project. Representative Hagerman agreed and championed the application. We are thrilled Casper will be receiving 1.8 million for the North Platte Sanitary Sewer Project. The total project cost is 5 million. The North Platte Sanitary Sewer is a wastewater pipeline that begins on the west side of Paradise Valley and collects wastewater from homes and businesses from Casper, Bar None, Mills, and several water and sewer improvement service districts in Natrona County and conveys it to the Sam Hobbs Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant located near Bryan Stock Trail in Casper. A capital investment like this serves the entirety of the regional sewer system, provides environmental protection, and protects the health and safety of all community residents. We definitely appreciate, as the city and as the region, for Representative Hagerman's support and sponsorship of this project. Now, we will go ahead and start off. Got three on this side, so we'll start over here tonight.
Right.
Councillor Pollock.
Since my last update, I've had a Metro Animal Task Force meeting. Not a ton. I provided a Metro update last week as well to you. So about the same, just had the full group at that meeting. I had Lisa, was kind enough to be my proxy at the NPO meeting, so we'll have to defer to her for that update. And then I was at the LGBTQ advisory meeting. We have a project that I hope to be able to update you all on with details soon, but hopefully something in the works there. I would think that's really, everything else was kind of the same stuff that we've been working on. That group is again gonna have a booth at Pride collecting information. It did have the opportunity, hopefully, to partner with a data company that does a lot of research. They have an office in Wyoming, but they are professionals at gathering data, and we're amenable to helping the advisory council free of charge with their survey to make sure that they're getting really good usable data and results for this group. So that group has been at Pride every year historically, and so they're just going to partner up on the survey this year rather than conducting two separate surveys. So there'll be a little bit of professional advice going into that survey this year. So look forward to being able to provide high quality data from that advisory committee to this group. And that's all.
Counselor Jensen.
Well, and just a couple things is all I have. Just sat in on the Visit Casper board meeting this afternoon. And they just did recaps on the International Roundup event that was in town that I helped host for them. So it was 11 international countries that were there, and then representatives from all of the Wyoming State Tourism Board. So that was fun. And then they're talking about the upcoming plan for all of the National Travel and Tourism Week. And Lisa sits on that board, so she probably has more, but that's all that I was interested in, really. Was the upcoming events that they like, that they're having. They're having a lot of programs and seminars that are gonna be downtown during that. Can't remember the week of May 20th or 14th or something like that. So there's a lot of things happening downtown. The other thing is tomorrow is the last day for signing up or registering for the Casper Area Chamber of Commerce Awards Banquet. So if you plan on going to that, tomorrow is the last day. Register because it's May 1st at 5 at the fairground. And that's it.
I don't have anything. I have a rec board meeting on the 3rd. So I will have more information on that on the 7th. I think when we meet, we're up next week. Carter. I can't believe you even suggested it.
The 5th.
Thank you for having my back. Counselor Gamble.
Okay. I had a Casper Housing Authority meeting on Thursday. They got their environmental review returned by HUD. And then I believe there was a several weeks notice they had to give before proceeding with construction on the playground at the old Willard School. So, yeah, thankfully that project is now starting to move forward. Folks that have served on council for several years will remember us sponsoring that application. I think it was fall of 21. So a little disappointing it's taken so long to release that funding and allow them to move forward on that project, but it sounds like the wheels are finally in motion and they're finally going to start getting some things done over there. We have 2 openings on the DDA board right now. I want to thank Nick Grooms and Will Reese for their years of service. Nick is a CPA and Will is an attorney, and their expertise has been really invaluable for that board. They have donated a lot of their time and put a lot of effort into that board and all the DDA related activities. So I want to thank them for their service. If you have questions, email kevin@downtowncasper.com or call their office. The application deadline, if you're interested in serving on that board, is May 23rd. So I would encourage anyone who's interested or might know anyone interested to apply. I was really thankful to see that our congressional delegation is pushing for legislation to prevent the postal services from closing, consolidating, or downgrading processing and distribution centers if the center is the only one in the state or the move would hurt mail delivery. It happened while we were meeting last week that USPS announced that they were going to downgrade our local center. And so I'm thankful to see our congressional delegation doing what they can to prevent that from happening. And then I wanted to just to remind folks that the 3rd and final phase of the K Street construction will be discussed at a neighborhood meeting on Thursday, this Thursday at 5 p.m. at the Casper Service Center, 1800 East K Street. If you live in the area or are interested in that project, I would encourage you to attend that meeting again Thursday, 5 p.m. Casper Service Center on K Street there. That's all I have. Thanks.
Can I ask Kyle a question about what you said?
Sure.
Board members, are you guys just looking for the CPA or an attorney to fill other positions?
I mean, we'll be losing those skill sets. They donated their time when we had those sorts of matters come in front of the board, so it'd be great to be able to replace that expertise. However, not necessary.
I don't want another board. I was just
Madam Vice Mayor.
I did attend the MPO meeting for Amber last Thursday. Not a lot was discussed because only one member was there that was on the board. Everybody else was a proxy. So we, as proxies, we voted for everything to be postponed for them to deal with when everybody is there. There was a presentation regarding streets and connectivity, and it was kind of in the beginning stages. So it looks like the beginning of next year is really when that report's gonna be finalized and brought to council to, review. I did attend Visit Casper this morning. So the recap on NJCAA, there were close to 1,600 rooms rented out for the event, which was pretty awesome. And it was estimated, kind of rough numbers right now, they're estimating about $1 million was brought into our community for that particular event. 8 nonprofits contributed, with Make-A-Wish was the winner, and they received $8,000, with Special Olympics receiving $5,000 as a second place. And then next year for that tournament, it's going to be extended 1 extra day. I guess it was just too much, and so this way it'll kind of help give some elbow room for some of the events and stuff. Also, they had reported that year over year for the last 7 months, our hotel stays have been increasing month over month. And so they're actually looking at about a 14 to an 18% increase year in. So with that being said, this is from our lodging tax, so tourism. And so Visit Casper is looking for some additional projects that Carter can think of. That's all I have.
Very good. I missed the get together Saturday evening because of health reasons.
What was it?
Do it.
I don't know what it was.
The one you went to, the international.
What the roundup.
That was Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go Sunday. I hosted it on Friday. It was the opening reception for the Trail Center. I didn't go either.
There was a Visit Casper Saturday night.
Yep.
So
Not
you didn't
Friday.
make that, okay?
No, because I hosted.
I missed that one as well, and I also missed the swearing in. And thank you, Amanda, for taking care of that. And we have 2 new sworn police officers in the city of Casper now as of Monday morning. So keep on recruiting, Chief. Thank you. So I wanted to mention that, and I believe, what, a week and a half ago, you swore in 4 new members to the fire department. So we are slowly replacing our retirees and keeping our staff well-trained and in alignment. So we appreciate that. Beyond that, don't know as I have much else. We had Mayor Commissioners breakfast last Thursday morning and got some very positive results from some of the other participants there about Metro Animal and potentially forming a joint powers board and maybe even going after a community-wide proposal for funding for it. So that was quite positive. Also, the discussion came up about how can we change our community culture with the fighting and the not reporting, and how can we address some of the youth situation and the youth violence in our community. And I know that will be coming up again for a point of discussion. Am I stating that appropriately, Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor.
Because that was a shame that according to the articles that I've seen in the paper, there were roughly a dozen other youth in the area when this whole situation went down. They were more interested in video recording it than trying to call some sort of assistance, when it appears too from some of the reporting that people knew that they were out to get this kid. And that's a shame that there was nothing about the see something, say something, which we have tried to instill in our community. And I think that's one of the big issues, Chief, isn't it, with the SROs, is the see something, say something propositions to try to help stop some of this type of violence and youth interactions?
Safe to tell is one of our main tools for that, yes.
Yes, very good. So we need to keep pursuing that as well. And so these have been some tragic times, and we need to try to get through it and help the family and the community continue to try to heal. So that being said, I don't know of anything else. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
That's, you're out of here.